Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really significant step for a lot of educators in U.S. universities.
Right.
That move from lecturer to senior lecturer. It feels like it should be within reach, for people really dedicated to teaching.
It absolutely is. But it's not automatic. That's the key thing.
Yeah, exactly. It needs, well, a really solid case. So our aim today is to unpack what goes into that based on some expert knowledge.
Precisely. Think of it less as just waiting your turn and more like building a compelling argument for your promotion. We're here to guide you through what really counts.
Okay, good. So we've looked into this,
Yeah.
and it seems to boil down to, well, maybe three core areas they evaluate.
That's generally right. You're looking at, first and foremost, your teaching effectiveness, then your service contributions.
Okay.
And sometimes, depending on the institution, there's an element of professional development or even scholarship.
Right. So if someone's thinking about this, where do they even start? It sounds like a lot.
The absolute first step, honestly, is digging into the specifics at your own institution.
Okay.
You've got to find and really understand your faculty handbook or whatever they call their promotion guidelines.
Like decoding the local rule book.
Exactly. Think of it that way. You need to know the expectations up front.
So what are the key things you'd look for in those documents?
Well, you need to pinpoint the specific criteria, like how many years of service are required. Usually it's somewhere in the 5 to 7 year range.
Okay.
But check your specific place. And then, of course, those core evaluation areas we just mentioned. Teaching, service.
And maybe that third one. And I guess the job titles themselves can vary too.
Oh, definitely. You might see instructional faculty or teaching faculty, maybe professor of practice.
Okay.
Understanding your institution's terminology and, importantly, how they value these roles gives you essential context for everything else.
Okay, so you've done your homework. You understand the local policies. Now let's get to the big one for these roles. Teaching. How do you build that really strong record of teaching excellence? What counts as evidence?
It's definitely multifaceted. Your student evaluations, for instance, are crucial.
The scores.
Yes, the quantitative scores, but maybe even more telling is the qualitative feedback, the comments.
Ah, okay.
You want to look for trends showing, consistently good teaching, or even better, how you've improved based on that feedback.
Makes sense. What else?
Peer observations, getting colleagues to actually sit in on your class and provide feedback, that gives another sort of external viewpoint.
Yeah, that perspective from a peer seems really valuable. And it's not just the classroom moment itself, is it? It's also about course design.
Absolutely. Your syllabi, your assignments, your course materials, they can demonstrate your teaching approach.
How so?
Well, they can show how you've maybe updated things, integrated new teaching methods, or adapted based on, say, assessment results.
Assessment data.
Right. Exactly. If you're using things like pre and post tests, or maybe student portfolios, or using rubrics to show learning gains, that's powerful evidence of impact.
So you're demonstrating learning actually happened because of your teaching.
Precisely. It's helpful to maybe identify, say, 2 or 3 core teaching principles you follow, and then show how your evaluations and materials actually illustrate those principles in action.
Got it. So what are some practical things lecturers can actually do to improve or demonstrate that strength?
Well, embracing evidence-based pedagogy is key.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means using teaching methods that, research has shown are effective, things like active learning strategies.
Instead of just lecturing.
Right. Getting students actively involved, or maybe using a flipped classroom model. Technology integration is another one, but it needs to be meaningful.
Not just tech for tech's sake.
Exactly. Using the LMS effectively, multimedia, tools for online engagement, things like that. Also, developing brand new courses or doing major revisions to existing ones shows initiative.
And what about supporting different kinds of learners?
Oh, that's increasingly important. Thinking about universal design for learning UDL, making your course accessible to the widest range of students, or using inclusive teaching practices generally, that's definitely valued.
Okay, so you've been doing all this great work, collecting the evidence. How do you package it all? That's the teaching portfolio, right?
Exactly. The portfolio is your narrative, backed up by proof. You need to structure it well.
So what goes in it, typically?
Usually you start with a cover letter or a promotion statement. That's your summary, your argument for why you should be promoted.
The elevator pitch.
Kind of, yeah. Then comes your teaching philosophy statement, usually about 1 to 2 pages.
And what should that cover?
Your core beliefs about teaching and learning. But crucially, don't just state beliefs. Connect them to what you actually do in the classroom.
Show, don't just tell.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Like, I believe in collaboration, so here's how I used group projects in course XYZ, and here's what the student outcomes looked like.
Okay, makes sense. Philosophy, then the evidence.
Yes, that's where you put the data. Tables summarizing your EBL scores, maybe some really impactful quotes from student comments.
Carefully selected, I imagine.
Oh, yes. Ones that illustrate specific strengths or maybe even growth. Then descriptions of new courses you developed or innovative teaching strategies you tried.
Technology use, perhaps?
If it was innovative, yes. And definitely include a section on your professional development related to teaching conferences attended, workshops, certifications, that kind of thing.
Right. Anything else that could go in? Optional extras.
Sure. If you've won any teaching awards, definitely include that.
Big or small?
Any recognition helps. Also, any grants you've received related to teaching or curriculum development, or maybe participation in special teaching fellowships, those add weight.
Gotcha. Now, we mentioned service earlier. Even for teaching-focused faculty, service is still a pretty big deal, isn't it?
It really is. Universities expect faculty, even those primarily focused on teaching, to be active citizens of the community.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, it can take many forms. Serving on departmental committees is a common one.
Like curriculum committees?
Exactly. Curriculum assessment, maybe hiring committees, that's valuable departmental service.
And does it go beyond the department?
Oh, absolutely. Getting involved in university-wide governance is often highly valued. Things like the Faculty Senate or serving on university task forces.
Especially on key issues.
Right. Maybe task forces on diversity and inclusion or student success initiatives. Also, things like student advising and mentoring count.
Mentoring other faculty, too.
Yes, mentoring junior colleagues is great service. Even organizing events like workshops or guest speakers for students or faculty.
It sounds like a lot of potential activities. It must be important to keep track.
Oh, crucial. You need to document all your service contributions. Keep a running log.
Even the seemingly small stuff.
Yes, those informal things, advising a student club, helping organize a departmental retreat, it all adds up. You'll thank yourself later when you're putting the portfolio together.
Good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's quickly touch on that optional piece. Scholarly or professional work. How important is that for this kind of promotion?
It varies a lot by institution. It's often not a strict requirement for senior lecturer, unlike, say, tenure-track promotions.
But it can help.
It can definitely strengthen your case. It shows you're engaged beyond just your classroom.
So what kind of things count here?
It could be publications or presentations, maybe on teaching methods, maybe in your discipline itself.
Okay.
Or maybe you've developed curriculum materials that others are using. Conducting research on teaching and learning, what we call SOTL, Scholarship of Teaching and Learning.
Right, studying your own teaching.
Exactly. Systematically reflecting on your practice, maybe sharing findings. Securing grants for instructional innovation is another plus. Even just active membership in professional organizations.
So even if it's not required, it paints a picture of someone who's, actively contributing to the field or the practice of teaching.
Precisely. It shows ongoing intellectual engagement.
Now, this whole process, it feels like it's not just about ticking boxes on a form. There's a human element too, right? Mentorship, visibility.
Oh, absolutely critical. Promotion decisions are made by people. So building relationships and making sure people know who you are and what you do, that matters.
How do you suggest people do that?
Well, definitely seek out mentorship. Talk to senior colleagues you respect, maybe in your department, maybe elsewhere.
Ask them for advice.
Yes, and even ask them to look over drafts of your promotion materials. Get their candid feedback.
That takes some courage, maybe.
It does, but it's incredibly helpful. Also, have those informal chats with your department chair. Let them know your aspirations. Ask about timing and process.
Be proactive about it.
Definitely. And look for ways to get involved beyond your department. Campus-wide committees or initiatives, that raises your visibility.
What about conferences?
Attending teaching and learning conferences is great. Even better, presenting at them.
Showcase your work.
Exactly. It shows leadership and innovation to a wider audience. I remember one colleague presented at a regional teaching conference, got fantastic feedback, and it really boosted their promotion case later.
That's a great example. Okay, let's talk logistics. Timing. When should someone realistically start prepping for this?
Well, eligibility, as we said, was often around that 5-7 year mark. But remember, institutions might have exceptions for really stellar cases.
Okay.
The actual application process usually starts about a year before the decision is made, so you need to plan ahead.
And what does that review actually look like? Who reads the file?
It typically goes through several layers. First, usually a committee within your own department reviews it.
Your peers.
Right. Then your department chair writes a letter or recommendation. Then it goes up to the dean's office, your college or school level.
Okay.
And finally, there's usually a provost level review, maybe by a central university promotion committee.
Wow, multiple stages.
Yes. And along the way, there's often some kind of internal peer review specifically focused on your teaching. Plus, they'll usually solicit letters of support.
From people inside and outside the university.
Often, yes. Both internal and external letters can be part of the package. Eventually, you get a formal letter with the decision and hopefully some useful feedback either way.
Right. So as we start to wrap this up, what are the absolute must-do tips for someone aiming for senior lecturer? Your final takeaways.
Okay, number 1, keep records. Start now. Document everything, teaching, service, professional development. Don't wait until year 4 or 5.
Good point. Too hard to remember it all later.
Exactly. Number 2, tailor your materials. Read those institutional guidelines carefully and make sure your portfolio speaks directly to their criteria.
Don't use a generic template.
No, customize it. Third, be specific and where you can, quantify your impact. Don't just say you improved student engagement. Show how and maybe point to data.
Evidence again.
Always evidence. And finally, be proactive. Don't just wait to be told. If you think you're ready, start the conversation with your chair. Ask about the process.
Fantastic advice. So the main message here seems to be that promotion to senior lecturer, it's definitely achievable.
Absolutely.
But it needs that strategic planning, that strong record, especially in teaching and service, and potentially in those other areas too.
It's about showing your sustained value, really, to students, the department, the university.
Understanding the rules, building the narrative, provided the proof, that seems to be the path.
That sums it up well. It's a demonstration of your continued contribution and growth.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful, and for all of you listening who might be looking for lecture roles in the U.S. right now, maybe thinking ahead to this very step, definitely check out the listings on academicjobs.com.